Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here in China. It's the first time for me to be in Shanghai, and I'm really eager to present to you the activities of the Austrian platform, Industry 4.0. The Austrian platform, one of the big first thing were the German platform, and we looked a lot also on the German platform, but deliberately did some things others than the German ones. But first of all, I would just very briefly talk about what is Industry 4.0 in our perception. First of all, it's about digitizing the whole supply chain. So it's not only focusing on one company, but really focusing on the complete supply chain. It has several features I will go through very quickly. First of all, you have to differentiate between a smart product and smart production. You can have a very smart product, but still the production is outdated, and vice versa. And to address the whole potential of digitization, it's necessary to both address the product and the production. Secondly, Industry 4.0 digitization is about combining the virtual world with the real world. And I have seen a very interesting example of a company in Austria that produces trucks. They virtually developed a truck and they virtually simulated the production. And they realized that they couldn't attach the bumper because with the screwdriver they couldn't reach what was necessary. So they had to redesign it. And this is the advantage of Industry 4.0. Before producing a prototype and before setting up the whole production site, you can do it virtually, saving a lot of money and really optimizing it. And sort of only the final stage would be to do that all physical and not virtually. As was mentioned also by Mr. Matzner, business models are key also in this digitizing environment, and we see three trends from that. First of all, it's a shift from hardware to software. Increasingly, and you see it with mobile phones, it's not the hardware that is important, but it's the software. The second one is more and more you switch from products to services, whether it's mobility as a service, computing as a service or cloud services, etc. So the focus is much more on services. And thirdly, it's from the single product to the platform. A platform like Alibaba is competing with other platforms. It's not the product itself that is competing, but the platforms. And we see that these three big trends are in regard to digitization. When we look at the production itself, we see that both workpieces and machines operate flexibly, autonomously, efficient, and if, for instance, one machine falls out, another machine could take over the activities within the production side, so much more flexibility. Customer needs are taken up real time. Mr. Matzen already mentioned it with the Adidas fabrication plant, for instance. And this real-time issue is getting more and more important. And last but not least, you have also predictive maintenance, predictive analytics, etc., to plan something in advance to increase the efficiency also of your production process. Just a few slides on key facts on Austria. They are not as impressive of the Chinese facts or the German facts, but I would just like to highlight two things. First of all, Austria, like China, like Germany, is an industry country, and our industry quota is about 21.7%, and we have a research quota of a little bit over 3%, and we're of course very export oriented, and that is the key. That's why we also try to focus very much on this Industry 4.0 issue. What are the drivers of Industry 4.0? There are two key sectors, I would say, and the first one is the manufacturing sector, machinery sector, and the second one is the electronics sector. And these provide services and goods to all the other sectors, including, of course, also the machinery and the electronics sector, but also chemistry, automotive, food, etc. And all these sectors together we perceive as Industry 4.0, Production 4.0. And there are other sectors like insurance, banking, tourism that would not be within this Industry 4.0 sector. But what is relevant for all these sectors is you have to address cybersecurity, you have to address research, technology development, you have to address infrastructure, and that is not just sort of roads, but also broadband, etc. And of course you have to address qualification, because that is key. In Austria, the impact of Industry 4.0 is quite high. We have the GDP in 2017 of about 370 billion euro. That is about 2,850 billion yuan, sorry. And until 2025, we see that between 50 and 90 billion euro would be additional production and additional value added, another dimension of 20 to 40 billion euro roughly. So that shows that Industry 4.0 really has a very positive effect on the Austrian economy. Now I would like to turn to the Austrian platform Industry 4.0 I'm representing today. And we consider Industry 4.0 a societal challenge. So it's not just about technology, but it's about much more. And it can only be addressed if we collaborate, and that means industry, science, policymakers, the regions, NGOs, etc. And you will also see that in the structure of the platform. And it's not only about technology innovation, of course this is very important, but it's about new business models, it's about the transfer of knowledge and know-how, and it's about the broad society accepted deployment and implementation of all these technologies, and that is key. In Austria, of course, I visit a lot of companies, and I can see, for instance, a company purchases a new machine, that it sometimes happens that employees are afraid that they would lose their jobs, and that also means, for instance, that if they are afraid of losing their jobs, they would not be innovative again. Continuous improvement processes, etc. So, of course, you also have to address this social issue. What is the mission of the platform? It's about fostering collaboration. It's about coming up with strategies towards policymakers, and because it's membership fee, and you will see it in the next slide, of course it's also providing services for all the members we have in the platform. And the structure of the platform is we have 6 founding members, and that is the inner circle. And that is one ministry, and that is employers and employees associations at the same time from the very beginning. So it's the trade unions included from the very beginning, but also employers associations, Federation of Austrian Industry, Chamber of Commerce, etc. And these 6, and then one ministry, Federal Ministry for Transport, Innovation and Technology. And these 6 identified the mission of the platform. The second circle, these are the members that pay membership fee. On the left side, it's companies from A1 to Zumtobel, and on the right side, it's universities, applied universities, public research organizations, and there are other federations as well. And the outer circle, these are cooperation partners that are relevant to implement all these strategies that we work on. And on the top half in Austria we have 9 federal provinces, and to identify what are the strengths of the provinces and what is the federal government is doing is extremely important to streamline policies. And on the lower level there are ministries, also Research Promotion Agency that is also present today, but also patent institutions, standardization institutions, the pedagogical universities, because they are involved in teacher education and teachers trainings, and we consider them relevant. So these are all institutions that are relevant to implement Industry 4.0 in Austria. And how do we structure that? We have so-called expert groups created, and in these expert groups experts from all these institutions come together and work on strategies. And the first one is on research, development and innovation. The basic idea here is to develop a technology roadmap, and there are a lot of EU technology roadmaps, for instance, so that we bridge the gap between what are the needs of industry and science, and with regard to funding schemes of the Austrian government, so that when they have calls that are really relevant for industry and research institutions. The second one is on norms and standards. As Austria is a small country, we are not developing our global norms and standards, but rather informing what are relevant norms and standards, and most of these are international norms like ISO, IEC norms, because if a company develops a new product and knows that there are certain norms, it reduces the risk, market risk, but also technology risk. And there are many aspects where many companies do not have so much knowledge about, like security, or maybe if you take a machinery industry and suddenly they have to introduce a software, etc., that is relevant, and their norms and standards can help. The third one is on business models, so it's not just on technology, but also how to implement it, and there we have a focus on business models specifically targeted towards small and medium enterprises. Security and safety is an important issue. Many of the business models rely on security issues, and that's why we have put that on the front. And so we focus very much on security and safety issues. If you imagine a robot is hacked, and as we have seen in the film, might harm a person, then also safety issues are included in the work we do. Qualification is one of the biggest topics, really from school to university to continuous training. And we try to bridge the gap between what is needed by industry and what is offered by training institutions. And many companies we ask what competence or what type of competence they would need in 4, 5, 6 years' time. They cannot answer. And so that's why we try to bridge this gap. Another one working group we run is on smart logistics, and that means not just focusing on one company, but really trying to address the whole supply chain, and the link between the different aspects of the supply chain is logistics. We have one, it's not an expert group, but regularly informing about what's going on in other countries. We're in very close contact to the German platform, to the Swiss platform, to the Czech platform. In our annual conference, our focus country is France this year. We're in very close contact to Korea, and this is a good opportunity also afterwards in the coffee break to talk. We have one aspect which is on human being in the digital factory, because as I mentioned, labor laws, etc., extremely important. How to organize work and how to keep up with an organizational culture, these are focus areas in this working group. One on communication, I guess you know. And the last one is, we call it regional strategies, and there we really sit together with the regions to discuss joint things, because whatever you do as a government, for instance, or as a platform, the effect is in the region, and different regions have different specificalities, and specializations, and that's why it's important to have a regular contact between the regions and the federal government. And the last slide, and the one is in the center, it says finish and it says pilot factory, because we organized together with the ministry also a consultation process to set up these labs, digital innovation hubs in EU, or these research factories, and there we identified topics that are relevant in Austria, and we came up with 4 different topics, and 3 are already, well, one is already established, one pilot factory, 2 are being built up, and one will be, there will be a call next year on electronic-based systems. And we're not alone, and now I have an EU focus. Since March this year, there's a European platform on national platforms, and in 15 EU member states we do have national platforms. The German one, I've seen on the list here that there are also a couple of Portuguese. So there's Industria 4.0 also in Portugal. And here we tackle also topics that are relevant on the European level. And that could be on data security, it could be on digital innovation hubs, it could be in many other areas that are relevant to tackle on the European level. That's why the European level is extremely important. And Commissioner Gabriel next week I will be in Brussels on that topic, because the European Commission is doing a lot also in this direction. And there I would like to finish. Thank you very much.